Now, one of the things that very commonly gets talked about from an administrative standpoint is adding devices into OmniCenter. There's obviously a few different ways to do this. Import is kind of the most obvious one, and this is the way that we typically would do an initial installer if you have a large number of devices to add to the system. Doing it through the import tool is probably the quickest way to do it. And you can basically grab a sample of the CSV file format or see basically what we're using in terms of fields there. And there's a lot of optional fields and only a couple of required ones that would allow you to import devices kind of en masse. But a couple of interesting tricks here. You can also export the current device list and then make changes to it and then re-import that device list. So if I needed to make a lot of changes to a bunch of devices, like if I wanted to change, naming conventions, for example, on a bunch of devices, or if I wanted to go in and kind of make mass changes to descriptions or things like that, I could do that by downloading the current config, editing it in a program like Excel, and then re-uploading that CSV to the tool. So that's a useful way to do kind of mass changes. I can also auto-discover devices. So this is pretty obvious too. Give it community string and optionally Windows credentials and a group of subnets to scan. And it'll scan those subnets, and any systems that it finds will show up here under the completed auto-discovery scan. So I can see here I scanned this range at this particular date and time, and I can zoom in on that to see what was found on those systems at the time. It'll even show me, if I went to, all the devices that were found, including the ones that were already in the tool, and then it automatically added any new devices that it found. So pretty straightforward there. You can also run this as a immediate scan, or you can schedule it. And if you schedule it, you can set it to be a single or a recurring scan. So it gives you a way to go in and create an automated scan if you have, for example, a particular subnet that's maybe constantly adding new hosts. Now, if you're doing this for virtual systems, you don't have to do this via auto discovery, because once you add the system in either as vCenter or Hyper-V system into your OmniCenter, it'll automatically add new guests and hosts and clients as they're provisioned in that system, and it'll do that in real time. It'll scan those systems every few minutes and add them as soon as they're discovered. So you don't need to do a separate auto discovery scan for that, but it might be useful for finding network devices, or if you still have hardware servers running around at some of the sites. Now, the other way is the manual add, and this falls into two categories. There's a quick add, which basically we give it an IP address and a community string, and optionally you can set category and site, and it'll try to figure out everything it can about the device. Now, the interesting thing here is that when we do this, when we do this kind of a quick add, if I set site to none, it's going to try to figure out what site it's actually at based on the subnet that it's located in. So once it gets an IP address or a host name and figures out where that's located, it'll actually try to map that to a site automatically for me if I don't pick one here. But basically, this is just letting me try and figure everything out from the OmniCenter's perspective. I can also go in and do a manual add, and this is where I get some more advanced options. So in a manual add, I can kind of pre-assign a template to the device or a type to the device. So if I want to tie this, for one particular device, I can set a template for it if I want to. And I've got some advanced options here in terms of setting up login credentials at the time that I add the device. You can also set those up through templates, but if I want to do it manually, I can do it here. And importantly, if this is a device that I'm not going to be able to actually collect data from, if it's a ping-only type device, there's this poll device or SNMP WMI. I can turn that off. And if I leave host and service monitoring on and turn off poll device, it's going to basically use this as a ping-only device. It's not going to try to connect or collect any SNMP or performance type data from it, which will both save resources on OmniCenter as well as across the network and stop it from, just sort of banging its head against the device trying to get more data out of it. So that's probably the most important one there. The other thing that's worth mentioning is use templates. In 9.1, this changed. We actually changed the way that we do templates in 9.1 to give you a lot more flexibility in terms of how templates are added and configured. And the use templates flag controls whether or not templates are applied to this particular device, because if they are, it's going to apply all of the relevant templates to this device.